Yeah.
You also, I see that you perform background vocals for like Shantae Moore, who I love.
Yeah.
Joe and Chico DeBarge.
And actually, the Shantae Moore, we actually sang together.
Okay.
Backgrounds. The story is that a mutual friend of ours, I guess it was somebody, I guess Barron went to college with her. And he initially wanted her to sing a duet with him on his album. He's a gospel artist. Mm-hmm. And so I was already doing backgrounds on his album, and so he asked me to demo it, but I guess he wrote the song with someone and wanted me to demo the female part so that she could learn it, and we would, I would just do backgrounds. So she comes into the studio, and she's so sweet, and she's listening to the demo, and then she's like, well, no, she should sing it. And I'm like, what? Like, Shantae Moore just said I should sing a part that's supposed to be for her. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I was really floored by that because, again, Shantae, of course, was one of the few artists that, I really dug at that time. Female artists, anyway, because I don't remember there being a whole lot during that particular period. But interestingly enough, of course, I moved around a lot, but I moved I think it was from D.C. back to California at that time. And the one cassette, I know I'm dating myself, but the one cassette that I brought back with me during that time was a Shantae Moore CD. I mean, I wore it out in my little Geo Metro. I wore out her cassette. And so for her to be, for one in the same room with me, for us to be able to do backgrounds together, and then for her to say, that my vocal was good enough, or, kind of validating my vocal, which of course I thought was the worst. Because, anyway, you're your hardest critic. But, but I ended up appearing on his album as the duet with him, and we did the backgrounds together, which was an amazing experience as well. So yeah, and then like the Chico DeBarge and, I'm trying to blank, Chico DeBarge, Misha Paris, those are all affiliations with producers that I had worked with for one time or another, either doing demos for them. And like Misha Paris, I had demoed a song that a friend of mine, a songwriter, demoed it for him, and she heard it and wanted it for her album. But also decided that she wanted me as her background singer on basically all the album. And I was just honored to be selected and to, for someone to actually appreciate my work. And so, yeah, I mean, when you look at my bio or whatever, it seems so much more full than even I imagined. You know what I mean? Like, I don't read my bio, but it's not.
You wake up every morning and read your bio like every
right, exactly. But it's interesting when I do an interview with someone and they start bringing up stuff and I'm going, wow, yeah, I did that. Wow, when I'm looking at my day-to-day hustle, and sometimes it seems like you're climbing this uphill battle. But one of the things that I mentioned in my recent blog was that, we should all celebrate our small victories, because when I look at my body of work, and granted, not even comparing it to anybody else, when I look at my body of work, I've done some amazing things, and I've been blessed to have been able to experience those things. Even something that's not in my bio is, I was in a group when I was 17, had a first deal and everything, and my group was asked to perform for Stevie Wonder's son's birthday party, and his son Mumtaz. And so I was so excited, of course, to be able to perform for Stevie Wonder, But again, it's one of those things I don't really talk about a lot of times because I always forget some of the things that have happened. There's been so many great things that have happened, and that was definitely a highlight for me. And I mean, this is the other part of that story, is that I was working at a hotel as a night auditor during that time.
Oh, I've done that.
right? So the night before we were supposed to perform, I was working, and I was there. Well, I was there by myself. Well, the manager was crazy. The manager was asleep in the back room, a room that was kind of bolted. It was kind of like a vault kind of thing. But anyway, in essence, I was there by myself. And I had just started working there, and I was held up by gunpoint that night. And, it's funny. It's not really funny, but like I think back to what I was thinking at the time and all these different things. And the way the counter was set up, I was sitting down at the counter. So at eye level, I couldn't really see much. I could just see the person like approaching. And all I heard him come in, yelling some expletives or whatever. And of course, me being a sister girl, I was like, "Excuse me." and then I stand up, and then I see the sawed-off shotgun, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what you said." So, but the thing is, because I was so new at the job, I didn't know how to open the register. And he's like yelling at me to open it. And I'm like, I don't know how to do it, without a transaction, And so he leaned over, he took his money, and so he left. No, before he left, and ironically, just before he was trying to get the register open, there was a car rental place that was right in it was inside the hotel. But he's never there that time of night. But he happened to come there at that time, and he had his back to the entrance of the door, so the gunman couldn't even really see him at first. So he just kind of stayed there like quietly, and then finally he saw the movement, and then he asked him if he had something to say about it, and it's like something out of a movie, Wow. But I thank God that we weren't harmed. As a side note, I was really ticked because we could have been harmed, and the video cameras didn't have any tape in it. Oh my goodness. So if something had happened, they wouldn't have known. So the moral of the story is, I went to, that day I hadn't even gotten any sleep. Of course, I was so rattled, hadn't gotten any sleep. We drove out to the party, which was during the day. Drove out to the party, and my boss calls me wanting to know what time I was going to be at work. And I politely told him, I won't be returning. You can forget about that. But, I think it's kind of like, just kind of like my whole journey. You kind of meet adversity, but at the end of that, you see all these great things that are occurring. And for me to be calling my boss, telling him, "Oh no, I'm not coming back," and I hang up the phone, and then I walk in to perform for Stevie Wonder's son, I'm like, there couldn't have been any more, there couldn't have been any better way for that to have turned out. And of course, not to mention for me to have survived that particular incident. But, there's just little things like that where I know that, God has truly he's been instrumental in everything that has happened so far.
So, but you've had a pretty great year, I think.
I have.
You were recently nominated for Soul Track's New Artist of the Year.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I'm still floored by that. It's hard for me to even wrap my brain around 2011 because everything happened very fast. We released it. I released Love Infinity in March, and all the things that occurred in less than a year's time. I mean, so many different things. The Soul Tracks nomination, I was just floored because, I really thought, just like when we were talking about the International Soul Music Summit, you come to those things because, you get to communicate with like-minded people, but you kind of get a sense that you're like just a little spot in the whole global scene, you know what I mean? And you really don't think that people, at least I didn't at that, when I first released the album, I really didn't think people were even listening, to be honest with you. And it's crazy because, the UK picked up on the album so much quicker, of course, than the States did. But when they even when, I would get the call that they're playing it on this station in the UK and this station, I was still kind of cynical about it. I'm like, yeah, they're just saying that, it really, it just didn't sink in right away. And for my song Free to be #1 for 19 weeks in the Netherlands,
That's wonderful.
It's just amazing to me, and I just say, it's a team of 3. Darla Tobin Blake's my manager, myself and God, really, and there were things that we would pray about, and like, okay, if this is meant for us, this is what's going to happen, and our theme for last year is what's meant for me is for me, and so Soul Track's nomination was great, especially being recognized among some of the artists that I absolutely love, to be in the same category with Cleveland Jones and King and Lenore J and, just people that I listen to and have been inspired by their movement. So yeah, this has truly been an amazing year, and an amazing year for a debut album. Of course, I've had other projects before, but never released it to the universe, really. People around me knew about those projects, but obviously never released it to the masses. And for the response to be so positive,